Okay, picking up where we left off on page 432, we're talking about the system design specification and how it has the complete design for the new system along with detailed costs, staffing, scheduling, all those kinds of things. And so let's talk about the parts of that document. So they're suggesting it's got 6 parts. A management summary. A brief overview doesn't contain any technical jargon. So it's a management overview, no geek language. The system components, exactly this is what's going to happen. Here's the pieces, and kind of sort of like the shopping list, but don't make it like a tabular listing. The system environment, here's where it's going to go, here's how it's going to work. And we could talk both physical environment, like I'm going to put it in this room, and therefore you're going to have a 220 outlet installed, that kind of stuff. Or we could talk about the emotional environment. The users are ready for this kind of a scenario, and they're comfortable with this technology, that kind of thing. The implementation requirements. Okay, to do this, we need to be able to shut down this system, or move this thing out of the way, or knock out this wall, or what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to build a new room, whatever. The time and the cost assessment. How long is this going to take? What's it going to cost me? And then finally, any type of additional materials that might be appropriate that would help you with this decision. The next phase is the approval. Now, in the book, they say user approval. Now, when I say user, I tend to think, the low-end user. In their scenario, they're really not talking that. They're talking about the users of the system and management. So the users must review and approve the design. That kind of makes sense. And ensure that you don't have a major task of obtaining the approval. Make sure that there's, hopefully this is the first time they've seen this, you've kind of prepped them, and don't make it a giant thing for them. Don't go into financial detail, because more than likely they're going to know a heck of a lot more about corporate finance than you do. Anyway, so keeping the users involved helps with this kind of a scenario. And then lastly is a presentation. More than likely a PowerPoint presentation and some sort of a book that contains all this stuff. And you're going to stand up in front of a boardroom and you're going to give them your sales pitch, and provide them an opportunity to ask questions. You know the drill. And you can have a technically oriented one, or you can have a management oriented one. Perhaps you might have to have two different sessions. I will tell you that you don't put a technical session and a management session at the same time, with them both in the room at the same time, because the technical guy might ask a question, and it's very technically oriented, and the managers looking around to each other like, what the hell is he talking about? And they'll feel intimidated, and they will not ask a question in front of their own employees. So separate those guys out, and so provide them an opportunity to ask questions among their peers. Okay. So now we're at page 435, which is the chapter summary. Let me just go through this to kind of make sure we've got everything. Alrighty. So information system combines hardware, software, data, procedures, and people into system architecture. Before selecting an architecture, the analyst must consider the enterprise resource planning, initial cost and TCO, scalability, web integration, legacy interface, processing options, security issues, and corporate portals. And then they go on to say enterprise resource planning, establishes that enterprise-wide software that you may have to deal with. An architecture requiring servers and clients, you may have to go in and figure out, where the servers and which ones are going to do data and which ones are going to, store or process. Client-server architecture divides processes between one or more clients. Yep. A fat or thick client processes, puts processing on the logic on the client. Thin client design is almost everything is done at the server, and practically nothing is done on the thin client. Typically nowadays, the thin client is a browser. The client server can you can design 2 or 3 tier architecture. Let me tell you from my experience, I did it wrong for years until finally I had an opportunity to convert one of my own applications, and I went, dang, you mean those things that the professors told me all those years ago were right, and I didn't pay attention? Dang. Internet has become an enormous impact on system architecture. Duh. Most prevalent processing model is online, of course. Networks allow sharing of hardware, software, and data. Okay. A way network is configured is called its topology. And system design specification presents the complete system design for an information system and is the basis for the presentation that completes the design phase. So, that is the end of the chapter. And we'll see you again for Chapter 11 in just a few.